Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to the November 2019 IrisBG webinar with Havard from IrisBG and without Greg Payton from the Dawes Arboretum. He's at some NASPC meeting, so he is not available today, but hopefully we can be much quicker and and hopefully you won't miss all the jocularity that Greg's and knowledge that Greg brings with him. So, as always, if you have any questions, you can either switch your microphone on or off and ask the questions over the line, or you can alternatively use the chat function, which you will find on the toolbar there. You can just click chat, and then that will we will try to process that. So we have 4 or 5 topics, small ones, that we will cover, and then we'll see if there's anything else that comes up during the presentation. We're going to talk a bit about the IPNI that doesn't work, and then we'll talk a bit about recording altitude and containers and importing images. And then if you have any other things you want to talk about, then, as I say, send that question in and we'll look at it. If also people can mute their microphone when they're in general, that'd be good, so we don't get too much sort of noise in the background. Great. Let's see. So one first sort of technical thing, some of you may not have noticed, but a very helpful thing in Iris is found when you're dealing with the nomenclature, when you're working on your taxonomy, and you want to check if it's correctly spelled. So I'm here now in the taxa screen. We have an ABS field right here, and if I want to check if this is correct, you have this little nice blue button here called, which we use to look up the IPNI details. Now, unfortunately, there is some technical issues at IPNI. So you will see when you look at this, it suddenly brings up all the a lot of records, and it's nothing to do with ABS firma. It's something completely different. It starts with the genus, a genus, and then a and so forth. So basically, it's not working, and there's not much we can do about that just now. However, a workaround is to put the IPNI search on web search, so that you get the actual links up here. I have done that on this one, so I'll show you how to do that. If you go down to management and then definitions, and then web links, this is where you add it, or some of you might have already this default. So this is the old IPNI link. It's very much more fancy or complicated. The new one is a bit simpler. It looks a bit like this. So I'm just going to call that IPNI new, but I'm going to copy this in. So if anybody wants to put that in their own little web link, I'll send that into the chat function so you can copy that into your own Iris. Because when you do that, if I go back now to this, and then I do web search, I just call it new, but you call it whatever you like, obviously. Now, of course, the browser is in a different window here. Bear with me. Toolbar. So you get this kind of result, where it's a very different look. I can agree with that. So you get, and then you can look at the IPNI lookup, and then if you want to, you can actually copy in the LSID. No, you can't actually. That's where I'm actually hiding. You can't. Sorry, I was hoping you could. Great. So anyway, I now at least managed to check, and I can then copy the author back into which is already correct, so that I don't need to do that either. But that's how IFNI now will work for the time being until this is fixed. So just so you know. Okay, great. The next question we had from Shari was altitude. Now, there are two places that you have altitude for the plants in your garden, and there's altitude for plants that you have collected in the wild. Let's do the plant first. So when you're dealing with the plant here in the items, you will see that you have the latitude, longitude, or XY, precision, and here's the altitude. And I would like to, for those of you who are very fond of inches and feet, altitude are normally recorded in meters because it's normally, that's what is delivered by most GPS equipment is metric. So I would not start a discussion just now about the benefits of metric system, but it would be confusing to start recording in anything else, I think. Anyway, that's how it works here. So that's the altitude of the actual plant in your own garden. Now, if you're dealing with wild collected material and you want to record the details about the altitude of where it was collected, we have this particular here, where you see this accession was collected in Lithuania. And let's say we got a bit more details about this one, so we can update it and add altitude. I can go in here now, and I'm bringing that up. And here you can see, here, because it is a locality, it's sort of an area that you visited or somebody visited to collect the plant material. That can sometimes be quite vague. It can be, sort of a hillside or something like that. So here you can then write, for example, something like this: altitude in meter or feet, and then I'll pin that, and then you'll see that the description, the locality description, will change as well when you make those changes. So that's where you put in altitude for locality. And now if I go back now, so now we've changed the description of this this particular, but with GPS recording, you will typically also get altitude through the equipment. Great. Okay. So next question, Shari, was that okay? Did I answer your question?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Now, since we are at items, we also, there was a question about containers. The container information on the item is filled here, and it's a self-populated list. So for those of you who are new to Iris, I can explain that also. The drop-downs that have this little recycle button on the side, that indicates that you're dealing with a self-populated list. So that means that you can type in whatever you like. So when I start typing PL, you see I get all my pots of 3-inch and 3 and 4 and 5. But if I want to do a 6-inch, I can just type that, and then it will be added to the list. So that's how this self-populated list works. So now I've changed it to 6-inch. Okay, great. Now the question from Shari was, can I import this information? The answer to that question is found in the help file. So if I bring that up for a second here and go to usage data import. Now this here is grouped by what type of data you're importing. So we're going to look for the items, which is found here, accession item. And one thing that is a bit confusing when it comes to container is that it's actually called prop container. So it is actually the same as the one that's displayed, even though it's also used for, if you have propagation entries, it's the same one. So that's the name of the field when you want to import it. The question is whether you can get it out on reports is a good one, and I think you should be able to, but if you're not, then it's what shall I say? An issue that we need to look into. So let me see. Let's test this by seeing, here we got this accession number that has a container PL6. So I should just go on to my report types to look at the reports I have. And we have, now here's the tip in general. If you want to know, you see most of these items to report here by standard have a filter of what kind of fields should be included. So, but I'm going to make a new one now, so I include absolutely all the fields. So I'm just going to call it item 02. That's the base report, and then I'm going to call it item all item data. I can also, this is not so important, but I'm just going to. So now I have a report. Well, you see here that I haven't set any fields. That means that we're actually including absolutely all the fields. And then if I now go to the reports to run that, see what happens. So we have it here. And then I want to run the accession I had, which was 1966. Maybe I'll just do that, and then we'll see. It's just a trial data set, so it's not so big. Let's see if I get that record coming up with the container. I can't be sure, but now we can see at least what we're getting. So you see here item number, etc., and here you get all the different fields you can include it. So this is a nice way for you to test, what the capabilities are for a report by just adding a new one and just including all the fields. I should just search for the column, but I'm just looking through here quickly, just for. Let's prop history code. No, you're absolutely right. It's not included. So I think it's because of there's an issue with, that's a general thing we have in that the propagation fields are not included in the basic report, and it should be. Because people use record propagation, it's handy to have those propagation fields available anyway. So thank you for bringing that to us. Thank you. Okay, so then we managed to figure that out. And I'm going to go back, and now I can remove that thing I made, or I can just leave it maybe for that. Okay, great. So then we have the question about the data import of images. That's, again, first tip here is to then, of course, go straight back into the help file. And then we can look at images. So if I just, here I can also search image. And then it's the hyperlink up here, so I can jump down. The simplest approach, there are a couple of things to say. First of all, if you want to import an image, you normally would like to associate that with an accession. So if you do that, you don't need to record anything else than the actual. So let's show how that works. I'll bring up a spreadsheet here. if anybody want to chip in and emulate Greg here, that would be very popular. So if I do blank thing here now, and then so now let's see how this help thing works here. We need the accession fields. So if we're going to import images for an accession, so I can just go and look at the accession. So that means that we want one column for accession year and one for accession number. Let's cheat a bit so we can go and find that accession we had. So we're going to import an image for that one. So it's 1966-93. So then we have AC year, AC no. So 1966-63. Okay, and if you also knew the actual plant, but beyond, so you know that it's actually qualifier number 1, then you can also have that one, and that will be then like this. So if you look at help again, you will see that the help system will allow you to use that as a field to identify the plant itself. Now, if you go down to the images again, the next thing you want to do is to put in either a URL or an image file. I'm going to just I think I'm just going to do a URL so we can try that. So hold on, I'm just going to find one suitable from our own website here, just to let's see. Give me a second. And
also, Havard, the accession number was 93, not 63.
Oh, thank you. Well observed. That's why, thank you. You're sort of taking Greg's role there. That's great. So here I'm going to copy that image link here just as an example. Copy image location. And then image URL, I believe. No, I think 1966 accent number. We'll double check. Oops, sorry, I'm jumping forward and back. 93, not 63. Thank you. There we go. And then if you now look, so if it's not a URL, it will normally be an image file. Then you have to have the file name with the whole, all the details. You get my point. So you just need to add all the different things you need for that file name, C:, my documents or whatever. But the principle is the same. And then the other things you can then do is add details like the origin, provider, date, comment, and image status. So that's the rank. So that's the one thing I would do, and then the date. So image date. So I will do 2019. So yeah, I'll do 1st of October, like that. Sorry about these are no European dates, but you can use your own dates. Image rank. So I put that as 10. So here's a question that what we see now is that a lot of gardens get tons of images. That people are using the app to take pictures in large quantities, and then so this particular image will now be sort of loaded into the system. And you might have, if you look at this accession now, just to take that as an example, you see that this particular accession has one image, but it could have had 5. You don't know, you might not realize that when you actually import the image. And the ranking is something you should consider in relation to all the existing images. So one method is to always put the rank at 10 and then revise your images. And when you do that, you don't do it in the accession screen, but you do it in the taxa screen, because that's where all the images of the given taxa taxon will be listed. So if I go now and from this screen and go straight into the taxon screen, you will see that there are two images. And when I look at that, you see they're both ranked as 1. This is a very good example where you can see that one of them might be better than the other. And they are very similar. So you might say, we don't need to show both of these on the Garden Explorer, for example. So that's why when you then send in all the images with rank 10, they will not go online. And then you can go and, I know I'm digressing a bit now, but I just thought I would mention it. So then you can go on the taxa screen and do an advanced search, let's see, advanced search, and say, give me all the taxa with image rank equal 10. Excuse me. And then that will be like, the 10 will mean that the image has not yet been verified or compared to other. So I can look at now in here and see, here's 2 images, for that's 10. I can change those and say, yeah, this one is really good, and the other one, we'll keep it hidden, so we'll put that to 11. But this one is nice, we keep that 9, and this one is fine. This one will also hide to 11. So that's one method that you might consider, so that you can keep sort of a workflow in terms of evaluating your pictures when they come in. Yeah, so it's a question from Mary here, yeah, or a comment. Yes, to add images. So that's also a question. I'm now digressing from this import story. Sorry, I'll go back to that soon. But to add images, the images are listed on the taxa screen, as you see here, but they're also on the accession screen. And the reason is that normally you take pictures of the plants in your own collection. So you will then not only associate it with the relevant taxon, but through the by referring it to the given accession. That gives you slightly more detail about the origin of the image, you might say, where it was taken in the garden and of which individual in the garden. The same goes for the app. So when you take pictures with the app, you will be able to associate it with the plant. You actually automatically are associated with the plant you last looked at on the app, but we can change that if it's a different one. Okay, so if we now go back to our little story here, we have put in image rank and image date, and if we go back to the help, you will see that there are some other things you can put in: provider, origin, etc. So let's see if I now save this one somewhere. Image import test 1. Okay, so now we put that one away. And now I'm going to go back to Iris and go to data import and open file. And that's one tip as well when you're dealing with imports. Start testing very carefully with a very few entries, so that you get the schema correct, so you don't have to struggle too much with getting. Sorry, I'm just multitasking here, so that's not so easy sometimes. This is when Greg would step in and talk a bit, so I'm just trying to find where I put it. Hold on. Here, I think I put it here. Image import. No. Sorry. File. I was just save as. So documents OneDrive. Oh, okay. Documents. This should be easy to find, but it turns out that it's hiding. Hold on. Give me a second here, please. I'm just going to figure this out. Too many folders there. File. Save as. It's some weird thing going on here. Why is it? It's not showing up. Sorry about this. It goes straight onto the cloud. Yeah, that's why it's not coming up from there. Oh my goodness, and then we want passwords. Great. Sorry about this. I just need to move it to a new area here. Save. There we go.
No, finding files happens to the best of us as well.
Yeah. No, it was. It was just putting it on some sort of temporary cloud storage for some reason. So it was weird. And now it wants password for me to open it up. Okay, let's try it now. Open up. Sesame. Okay. Sorry about the delay here, ladies and gentlemen. But now it's processing it. And it says something wrong. It tries to add all kinds of things here. Because it thinks it's I'm trying to add an accession, which I'm not. So that's one of those things that happens. And I wonder if I might just need to. That's the challenge with the import. Sometimes it will try to. It thinks I'm doing more than one thing, so he thinks I'm adding a new accession. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of it now, and then we can feedback to anybody who has questions about this later. If I put in just the taxon name, it will work. I'm going to change just for the sake of expedience now. So I'm just going to do taxon name. And then we're going to.
Havard, if you put the action in as U for update, would that solve the issue?
No, it won't, because we're going to add an image. So I will have to. I'm just going to investigate this, and but if I do it like this, just for now. So that's a nice thing with the taxa, because when I have the name, it won't understand that you can't make a new taxon with just the name. You have to separate it out for genus, species, etc. So this should work at least for the time being. I know this is a quick workaround, but I just want to show you the basics. Input data, open file, and try again. And now it's looking promising. You see now this is so this is a first introduction to the image or the import. You get several tabs, and you see here now there's no taxons, no taxonomic groups, no taxon details, but there's an image. And I can look at the image, and what will happen? There will be one image added, and if I accept this, it will zoom in. And now if I go to my taxon here, it wasn't that one. It was when was it? I can go via accession. So you can see that it's actually in there. So here it is. So it came in. It's not a very great picture, and it's nothing to do with our CERN European, but it works. So that was the. Oh, did I mess up the accession number? Okay, shall we give it a go and see if that was right? Yeah. Okay. Well, did I? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So 1966 1093. Oh yeah, I had 093. Well spotted, Jessica. You are. Are you looking for a job? Sorry. Okay, so I'm just gonna fix that again then. No. And oops. It's a bit tricky to do these things on the fly sometimes. Here. No. So I'm not going to do the. Well, I can do everything. So. And then, thank you for seeing that. Maybe I'm celebrating too soon, but we'll see. So there we go. And if I go back now and go back to the import, open the file, and try it again. And it will munch away. And you're absolutely right. Thank you so much, Jessica. That was great that you saw that. So now it will find the accession. So the reason it thought it was a new accession was that the numbers were 1966, 93, and that didn't exist. So then it thought, hey, this is a new one. And then it wants all kinds of other details to be filled in. But now it tells us that we only have an image, and it's, interestingly enough, the same image, but that doesn't matter. So if I accept that, we will now go and see at the accession. And it doesn't show up now because if I click on the search result and just double click on it again, it will bring it up again. And here we go. So now it's in there. So that was the quick introduction into data import. Great. So there was a question also in general, adding images. You can also drag images from the desktop straight in here when you're recording in Iris. And yeah, it's the only thing you have to think about is the size of the pictures when you store them. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, by default it's set to 3 megapixel, which is quite a lot, but it's not necessarily perfect. If you're going to use pictures for printing or for publications or for marketing and things like that, you might want to use much higher resolution or higher resolution. So the key is when you add the images here, you have to already made up your mind about the resolution beforehand. You can change it on the individual desktops in the option here, and change it here to whatever you want. And whilst talking about images, we can also quickly talk about that on how it works on the app, so that I'll do that at the same time. So bring up the app here, bear with me. Okay, so this is, if I'm just going to do a recent list here, and so now we need to take a picture of something interesting, which is some batteries. So when you work on the app here, for those who haven't seen that, you bring up the accession. If I go back to the accession here, I got the lists of the most recent ones. If I want to search for something, I can do that. I search for A servers and search down in the bottom corner here. For those of you, there's on the YouTube, I've just posted a walkthrough of the app, so you can look at the features. It's a combination of showing you what you can do with it and also might be almost considered a help introduction. So it's available on YouTube. Just search for on our YouTube channel for handheld walkthrough. Well, it will be listed there. You'll find it. And then here, when you take pictures, you see that the pictures are down here at the bottom. And if I now looked at this second one here, I'm in Garden Le Coche, I'm on item number 2, qualifier 2, which you see here. And then I go to the image, and if I want to take a picture, I will, it will bring up the, so here we go, some lovely batteries. Didn't seem to take a picture yet. Why is that? There we go. And then it was a bit wobbly, but we think it's great. And you'll see here that the app also will set the ranking to 10 by default. And it will also reduce the images to 3 megapixel by default, but it will remember what you did from time to time. So if I now go for 5 megapixel, that will be the format for the next iteration or next time you upload it. But I'm going to take it to 2 megapixel, and then like that. So now it will be set as 10 for in the so that I can look at the image later. Okay. Great. So one thing I could, let's see, are there any questions? No. So one thing I would like to say about the app in general, we've got quite a lot of people using it now, and then one thing that can cause problems is if you, as you probably know, when you go onto the front page here, and the workflow is that you use the app manager to push the data out onto the service, and then you download the data set onto the device. If you have an old data set, you'll have a yellow kind of a badge, like you have a red badge. You'll have a warning badge here that you have an old data set. And we've had a few instances when people have kept using the app for several weeks without pushing data back. And then at some point, you will might have a plants that somebody has deleted on the desktop, and so this data set becomes more and older and older, and that can sometimes cause trouble after if you sort of let that go for a long time. So the key here, I think, is to try to push your data changes back the same day. I would recommend that, and then when you go to start working, start by downloading a fresh data set and then make changes. And then hopefully if you do that through one day cycle, then the chances of you getting into difficulties is very small. But if you let it go for weeks, then you might get into trouble that you, for example, have updated a plant that somebody has deleted, or then the reconciliation process might be a bit tricky and it might actually fail as well. So that's one thing to think of. The other thing that was discussed with some people, and I wanted to show you that since we're talking apps here, hold on, is the GPS precision. How precise is this? And yeah, that's a constant sort of question that comes up, especially with people who are not familiar with Iris and wonder, yeah, is this, how precise does it need to be as well? That's the question, I think. So our take on this is twofold. So I'm now just running a consumer grade tablet here, and the GPS precision here is not very good, 5 meters if you're lucky. But also in a garden setting, you're often under canopies and other things that will distort the satellites. And so the precision is even worse than when you're out driving on the highway with your Google satellite or Google Maps to find your location. So if I'm now going to bring up one plant here, and let's do this one. Oh, sorry. just to another one. So when you're mapping here, if I go in here, I can now up in the top corner here say show my location, and that will then be active as when I walk around. Another cool feature, but that we haven't, we're not going to do that now. But you can also look at the record on Garden Explorer if you have Garden Explorer. That's also quite cool. But when you show your location, that position is then dependent on the machine you have. In this case, this particular handheld that is not necessarily that good. There is one device from Trimble that's come out. I just want to mention that for those of you who have either got lots of money back from the taxman or have lots of spare cash. This particular one has a very high accuracy, and it's also quite expensive. But we're just investigating to see if this theoretically it should work, that you get the precision that this has to offer live inside here when you're using the app. So that might be that would be very cool if we're not 100% sure yet, because the way these specialized tools work, but on paper it should work. So I just want to mention that for those of you who are interested in these particular techie details. Okay, great. And I see that we have a few more minutes. I don't know if there's any other questions. Christina, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm all right. No questions today.
Okay, cool. Great. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. Yes, hello.
Hello, this is Mary. When we started putting in our features like benches and artwork, you can't do it through the handheld because the handheld requires an accession number. So we simply took pictures, put them in a folder on the desktop, and then went into assets, artwork for instance, and uploaded directly from that folder. And we did resolve our issue of them coming in sideways, fortunately. But that was a problem that kind of threw me for a while, in that I can't use the handheld to do it. The problem is the GPS location. I have to kind of guess at it because I can't rely on the handheld to give me that location.
No, you're thinking about assets again still, or was the location for plants as well? Or
no, locating plants is fine. That we can do through the handheld. But if I want to position an asset, our big bear that's painted, I've got to kind of guesstimate visually where that bear is located. I don't think there's any way to get it more accurate than that.
No, well, that's can be tricky. I mean, normally, or not normally, ideally, you want a good base map where you have lots of reference points, so you know that your beer or whatever you have bench are sort of halfway in between this road and this little island. I'm not sure what this dark brown thing symbolizes, but normally, hopefully, you have a map that gives you sufficient reference points for you to place things good.
And we do. And we don't have, fortunately or unfortunately at this point, we don't have that many assets to place out there because we're quite small. I can't imagine what Greg would do with his gazillion of assets.
No, Greg has, but also Greg has, he has one of those Trimble machines. And he can get sub-meter precision. It's like, so he would be able to then basically record down those coordinates and then type them in, or maybe use the Trimble might have some tools to do this data collection where you take a point and then you write some accession number or bench number or something, and then you have a spreadsheet or a CSV file that you look at later.
That's an idea. We will investigate it. Right now, we're just kind of semi-struggling to get everything on all the benches, and I missed about 5 or 6, so I have to go out there, and it's rather cold right now.
Yeah, I can't help you there. But the thing with the assets, I suppose, and the app, and the purpose of the app is that, of course, the plant collection is a much more dynamic thing, and there's much more data to deal with. Typically, benches, hopefully, there's something you record and they'll stay put for a while. But that's nothing. I don't think that's something we will deal with very soon. Adding support for managing your benches and stuff in the app, because it's sort of it's more static, but. Yes, I see that would be lovely to do that. So
no, and it isn't a requirement. We can pretty well place them where we want them, buildings and that sort of thing. It just threw me at first that I couldn't do it through the directly through the app. So I just thought I'd throw that in for anybody else that runs into it.
Yep. No, that's great. Thank you so much. And I'll just see if there's any other questions or. No, there's no more questions, which is good. So if you have any questions or queries that you would like to discuss at the next webinar, send them in and we'll cover them. And next webinar will be in December, on Thursday, the 5th of December. And we have not to worry about any summertime either. So that's good. Okay, I will say adieu to everybody, see you next time, and wish you all a happy Thursday, and thank you all for joining.